Russian troops are keeping up pressure on Ukraine's capital as talks resumed between the two sides on Monday, but ended after several hours without a breakthrough. The fighting, now in its third week, continues to exact a human toll, with the Red Cross saying it has caused, quote, nothing short of a nightmare. Ukrainian officials say a Russian airstrike in the capital's downtown area has killed one person and wounded six. AP correspondent Charles Ledesma reports.
The Ukrainian emergency services say the airstrike took place near a checkpoint and caused extensive damage to a residential neighborhood. Meanwhile, a presidential advisor says talks with Russia have concluded for the day and will resume again on Tuesday. And the EU's foreign policy chief says the 22-country bloc is finalizing its new round of sanctions against Russia, as it calls the country's violent invasion of Ukraine. I'm Charles Philadelphia.
The White House is considering having U.S. President Joe Biden visit Europe amid the Russian invasion of Ukraine. AP Washington correspondent Salgar Mughani reports.
No decision has been made, but officials say the administration's weighing the possibility of having the president meet with European leaders face-to-face. One official says the White House is considering a stop at NATO's Brussels headquarters. Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin's heading there this week to speak with fellow alliance defense ministers, which follows an extraordinary meeting of NATO nation foreign ministers earlier this month. Vice President Harris was in Poland and Romania last week, partly to reassure them and other Eastern flank nations about U.S. commitments to their protection.
This is VOA News. Peru on Monday restarted in-school classes for the first time in 2 years after they were suspended due to the coronavirus pandemic. Some 4.2 million children in the public system and 3 million children taught in private institutions will progressively return to their classes, the Education Ministry said on Twitter. Children have not attended school since March 16, 2020. In January, the government began vaccinated children aged 5 to 11 years old in preparation for a return to in-school classes. Peru has the world's highest death rate from coronavirus, with more than 6,400 fatalities per million people, according to a recent AFP count. Quote, everyone is returning safely to school, said the ministry, adding that more than 54,000 public schools are reopening. Peru has registered 3.5 million COVID cases and more than 211,000 deaths among its 33 million people. Police in the U.S. say a father of a 3-year-old boy who accidentally shot his mother to death over the weekend will likely face gun charges. AP correspondent Shelley Adler reports.
Dalton Police Chief Robert Collins says while they're confident that the boy fired the weapon, the gun was the father's responsibility. Collins says the boy was sitting in the back in a car seat when he somehow found the gun and began playing with it. Police add his parents did not know he had the weapon before it fired, striking his 22-year-old mother in the neck. The investigators have already determined that the father legally owned the weapon, but did not have a concealed carry permit he would have needed to have it in his car. Actually, it happened Saturday night in the suburb just south of Chicago. I'm Shelley Adler.
Britain's state court on Monday refused WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange permission to appeal a decision to extradite him to the U.S. to face spying charges. The court said it refused because the case, quote, didn't raise a real point of law. Assange has sought for years to avoid a trial in the U.S. on a series of charges related to WikiLeaks publication of a huge trove of classified documents more than a decade ago. A British district court judge had initially rejected a U.S. extradition request on the grounds that Assange was likely to kill himself if held under harsh U.S. prison conditions. The decision was posted in December, and Monday's news narrowed his options, but his defense team may still seek to take his case to the European Court of Human Rights or challenge the original judge's other findings. Find more on the stories on our website, voanews.com. Reporting by remote, I'm Jordan Lindsay, VOA News.
We're Russia continued its attack on Ukrainian cities, even as the two sides sit down for another round of peace talks.
It was a big hit. A lot of apartments were completely destroyed, some burned.
Plus, a day after Russia strikes a military base in western Ukraine, killing at least 35, Australia imposes new sanctions on Moscow.
Australian Foreign Minister Maurice Payne said in a statement that many of these oligarchs have facilitated or directly benefited from the Kremlin's illegal and indefensible actions in Ukraine since 2014.
And later in the program, what would it mean to the world if Ukrainian historical sites were lost to the war? Today is Monday, March 14th. From the Voice of America, this is Flashpoint Ukraine. Good evening. I'm Steve Miller. Government officials in Ukraine say that at least one person was killed and at least 3 others were injured when a shell hit a residential building in Kyiv on Monday morning. Evgeny Gazenko was there. He was speaking to Reuters News when he said he was on a neighboring building. He saw a smoke trail and then an explosion. Gazenko then went to that building and saw a dead body, a man aged around 70, and that of another woman. Yan Bouchard is in Kyiv. He joins us now.
Yeah, there were 2 attacks here in Kyiv today. One, this one in the apartment building. The information that I have is that 2 people got killed. Some others got wounded. I was there. I entered the building. It was a big level of destruction. It's incredible that just 2 people died. Probably a lot of the apartments were empty because more than 1 million people already left Kyiv. So it was a big hit. A lot of apartments were completely destroyed, some burned. That was pretty incredible. And later on here, like 2 kilometers away from there, another missile hit a bus and destroyed some apartments. 1 person was killed here, where I am. 3 others injured. So it was an enormous situation, a normal day with all the population here. Probably we would have way more deaths in a situation like this because it was a big fire. It was not just a mortar that hit this place right now where I am. This afternoon, things are quiet now.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could also share a little bit about your experiences over the weekend. You were outside of Kyiv on the outskirts where there was fighting between Ukrainian and Russian forces, and unfortunately, Brent Renaud, an American journalist, was killed. You were in the area, so can you kind of describe these circumstances as far as you know?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to say exactly what happened yesterday in their city. I was there, I spent my day there, and my day before there. The day before, things were a little bit easy, not really a lot of combat, not really a lot of bombardment, but yesterday, everything was really, really different. We could hear a lot of fighting going on the edges of this little town. It's a 60,000 population town, very close to Kiev, like 20 kilometers from here. And the bombardments were very, very intense yesterday as well. So it's really hard to say what happened. I just passed that place a few minutes before they got killed, and I didn't see any activity like Russians around fighting or anything like that. So I really don't know what happened, and I'm sure a lot of our colleagues here after themselves what exactly happened to him and his friends,